Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Safety View. We've got a great conversation happening today. We've got Dr. Lisa Lande, and she's going to be walking us through the idea of mental health and how does it really impact health and safety in our organizations. But before we get started today, in the spirit of mental health, we're going to have Rosa walk us through a little bit of a mindfulness exercise that we can actually bring to our teams in our organization. So I'll hand it over to you, Rosa, to lead us through that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have been starting my classes on relationship building with a short meditation, and it has been really helpful to get everybody's thinking about what we're talking about as opposed to the challenges they're facing at home or at work or the political turmoil that's going on. So you can use, quite a few leaders use this in their practices. It's a matter of knowing within yourself that this is going to work and that this is going to be helpful, because if you have self-doubt and you don't feel comfortable doing it, then of course it's not going to work. I should know because I was one of those people. And so through personal meditation practice and also by using it with my client groups, I have come to have a very deep level of confidence in the process of coming into this present moment, bringing our attention into this moment. And as we know, attention is critical to listening. We cannot listen unless we're present and focused. So we always begin in the process. You may close your eyes or simply lower them to the floor to look at the floor. And we always start with breathing, deep breath in, all the way into the belly and out. Just do 3 very deep breaths at your own pace, noticing the breath going in and out. The breath reminds us that we are alive and our lungs are always working for us, always supporting us. And now move your attention to your feet and take the breath into your feet so that you're feeling your feet. Hopefully they're flat on the ground. Move the attention up the ankles, to the knees, the thighs. Just notice the feeling in your legs, the back of the legs. Most of us are sitting, so we will feel our buttocks on the seat. Feel that. And as you take a deep breath in and exhale, let all the weight of your body fall onto the chair. So in, let go. Notice that your shoulders are dropping, relaxing. And as you do this more often, it almost becomes automatic. As soon as you sit in your chair and you start with the breathing, your shoulders start to relax, and that prevents a lot of neck problems, back problems, because we tend to stiffen up under stress as if we were carrying, like Atlas carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. So important to spend a little time giving your body some love. After all, your body is there working hard all of the time. So now move your attention up to your jaw, another place of tension. Breathe in, and again, you will let go of any tension in your jaw. All right, and go up to your eyes. Notice your eyes, your eyebrows, your scalp. And feel your scalp relaxing. Excellent. And now I will keep the time for us. We will go into the silence. And as we go into the silence, the thoughts will keep coming in. We can't stop the thoughts, they're always there. But I want you to become an observer and observe the thoughts. Just observe them come and go like a third-party observer. You just watch them. They come in and they go out, and we'll practice that for a minute, because this is the essence of meditation, is to not let our thoughts dominate how we feel. We are the masters of our own emotions and feelings, but we let the thoughts come in and disturb us, bringing fear or worry or anxiety. And so we need to learn how to say, yes, I have this feeling, and now I'm letting it go. So 1 minute of silence and practice observing and letting go. One word from each person, just say like, I'm Rosa and I am feeling calm.
I'm Lisa and I'm feeling very relaxed right now.
Jim, I'm feeling empowered.
I'm Nadia and I feel calm.
Centered.
I'm Tanya and I'm feeling rested.
Yeah, I'm feeling well.
I am Robin and I feel whole.
Thank you very much. And so the meditation, one of the purposes of the meditation, of course, is mindfulness and presence, to be present, which are elements of leadership that are extremely important and difficult to teach directly. We can only help people experience it. So through experience, they gain this. And so now you are aware of how you feel. So you notice all of these words already. We are, we're aware of how people feel in our session. And that really calms me down as a presenter. What about you, Lisa? I'll turn it over to you.
One of the things that Rosa and Tamara and I have talked a lot about is how sometimes fear and discomfort and stress can serve us. Yet when it becomes too much and we become unbalanced, and somebody had talked about being whole and balanced, it's the out of balance part that makes us feel crazy or unhealthy. And I'm going to start because if you know me at all, I tend to go tangential a lot. And I'm a very cerebral person, and I'm all about, linkages and big picture. And so what helps me kind of find balance when things are chaotic is to ground with details and some boundaries, right? Because that can help me feel safe. So even though we don't use slides very often here, it's going to just help me take you for 10 minutes with me while I hopefully stimulate some thoughts for this conversation. So when I began as an industrial organizational psychologist working with Fortune 100 and 500 companies out of Manhattan, safety and anyone who talked about safety was something that happened in a certain department in an organization that had absolutely nothing to do with me as a psychologist and helping leaders. And we're talking late 1990s. We were rich as a country. We had a lot of money. I was being flown first class all over the world. And safety was about technology. It's what was associated with technology. Then 9/11 happened, and I was living in Puerto Rico at the time, and some of you have heard this story. I was coming in to work on 9/12 at the Port Authority in Tower 2. And obviously that meeting never happened. And luckily those customers got out of Tower 2 just fine. But my new colleagues at Aon who are in Tower 1 and above the 96th floor, I never got to meet those people. And safety became real. And safety became more than technology to me. Safety became something really visceral and very emotional. And that was the beginning of when I recognized, and here I am, a trained psychologist, and it helped dysfunctional families initially, and now companies become more functional and healthy. And it never really dawned on me how those two, the physical and the emotional, intersect, you know, so much when we think about safety. And I'm amazed that even today, and this is another kind of, if you will, dark blessing of COVID, I think it has really raised the awareness of every worker, every citizen, that safety isn't just about our physical well-being. It's not just about how those bottles are labeled. It's also about how grounded we feel, how engaged we feel, how supported we feel, how connected we are. And again, 9/11 really brought that home. So anyway, this combination of physical and psychological safety made me realize that safety was much broader. And I see Jim Marinas is on the call, and Jim and I have done a lot through the Department of Energy and specifically with Lande in trying to integrate those and make the workers aware that there are these two dimensions of safety. And then it's dawned on me, and I'm sure all of you and the rest of the world, that safety equates to health and wellness. And I actually didn't put this in, but the image, and you all know it, of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And at the bottom, he talks about basic kind of food and shelter. And then he goes up to kind of connection and relationships. And I honestly think those belong on the same platform. I think that emotional and physical well-being are so integrated from the moment we're born. It carries through. And I think, yeah, we can talk about them as if they're separate entities, but they are so integrated. And so how are we as professionals in the safety world doing our best to really facilitate that sense of health and well-being and safety in this comprehensive way? I'm telling you, this is carpe diem for the health professional, because if we can't take advantage, in the healthiest meaning of the word, of an environment where people are so healthily vulnerable to recognizing that safety is comprehensive, this is the moment. And I think most of you know how the brain functions, just basic kind of physiology. And Gary Wong is here, who also is a cognitive, I think, psychologist, but definitely a scientist. You know, cognitions come from the brain, and the interface between our emotional amygdala brain, which primitively was probably, and I know I can find the data that supports, it was much more comprehensive because we had to react from those emotional places. And the frontal, the prefrontal, was smaller. It was not as well developed. And interestingly, as we've gotten to feel more safe physically, it's somewhat correlated with a minimization of the emotional part of safety. And so I think we have this weird opportunity to recognize that well-being comes from the balance of these two working together, that the emotions feed the way we think, and our thoughts in turn come back around to interface with the emotion. And if we're conscious of that, as Rosa just led us through this kind of meditation activity, we learn to recognize, as Tamara can feel the tension and the stress, that our physical and our emotional actually correspond as one. So, you know, the safety too, and the safety differently movement have talked a lot about the resilience aspect of safety and our adaptive capacity. And resilience is really a system-related factor of how much shock and stress a system can take before it has to change its functioning, right? And adaptive capacity is how much resource, if you will, we have to actually, again, deal with that stress. So where I want to now start the conversation, and not just be the only expert here, right? Because I'm only coming from my lens, is expanding that adaptive capacity. How are we helping as safety professionals build the capacity so when the stresses are great, that people can find that balance? What compensates for the stress? What feeds us as we learn to resile in the face of it, right? To make us stronger, because building resilience itself is an adaptive capacity, if you will. So with that said, I'm gonna get off of the share if I can, and bring us back. So are you guys off my screen now?
We're good. Mhm.
Far out.
Yeah.
And I just want to kind of open it up. You know, I'll of course chime in as a psychologist with both industrial organizational for 15 more, probably 25 years, and also clinical work for 10. I will definitely chime in, but how do we build that capacity? How are we helping people manage their mental health, which is different from mental illness? Not that stressors can't take us into mental illness, but we're talking about mental health and how we find that balance in these times of great stress and great VUCA.
I was doing some research around this as well. And in the National Standards of Canada for Psychological Health and Safety in the Workplace, they actually identified 13 factors that greatly influence this area of people. So I'm going to share that in a chat so that people can also kind of look through that list and kind of reflect and think about how they might be seeing this play out in their organization in different scenarios that they might be coming across day to day over the years.
Thank you.
And thanks to one thing, sorry, Rosa, I'll turn it over to you. I got some great articles from David Broadbent, and it's a fabulous article on mental health and finding it in this time of COVID. So I'll make sure that it's available to everyone. Rosa, I'm sorry, please.
No worries. This is, and anyone else that wants to say anything, please jump in. Just raise your hand and we know that it's your turn to talk, but because we like these to be conversations, not lectures, right? And Lisa, thank you for that brilliant presentation. You really bring a whole level of knowledge to that subject matter. But what, you know, the thing is, like, I was on a long thread on LinkedIn, and I was talking about mental wellness, mental health, and Dominic Cooper, who's a behaviorist, said that was not an area where a safety professional need go, because that's the responsibility of HR.
Wow.
And so I just thought, oh, wow, that's one of the other divides that exists in the safety profession, is the group that does feel that we can have some impact on well-being, and then the group that says, well, no, that's not where I can intervene.
And so I just wanted to build on that, Rosa.
Yes,
is that why in where we are in our maturity curve as a modern society, and we know that we need to be looking at things holistically. This is a discussion that's been repeated. I'm not going to have it again. So my question is that why are we trying to still silo human connectedness in this way?
You know,
Well,
Tamara, I'd rather interestingly look at what can go right as opposed to how we've gone wrong.
I'm not trying to look at what going wrong. I'm just saying that it's interesting that this is another influencer out there, and still there's that mentality of siloing and telling
Yeah.
the safety professional, you don't have to worry about looking at something you're not necessarily comfortable at. It's
Right.
okay to put it under the carpet. But yet we have other conversations saying we've got to get away from siloing, siloed thinking. We've got to be more holistic. So I'd like to hear what other people are thinking on that.
I've run into the same sort of a thing where when I talk to the safety people, they get a lot of them, like at ASSP meetings, it doesn't even come into their sense of what's going on. And it seems like it's out of the way. Yet there are lots of people working on safety, all in their silos, but we keep killing about 5,200 people a year in our country. And that hasn't gotten better over the last 8 or 9 years. And I think as a group, we're sleepwalking. We are very much comfortable in our combat. I resist change. Rosa tells me to do something, I push back. I can resist, we can argue, we can bring up all kinds of things and reasons to keep doing the same old, which is comfortable. And we need to wake up everybody. And it's a little bit like a book I just read, which used the story of the Sleeping Beauty. And the princess had to have a prince come to wake her up. Well, when I got wakened up, it was a fire in my plant. That was the prince that came to me and said, what you're doing is wrong. You've got to do it better. And going back, I think Tamara mentioned, we have to look at the whole picture. If we look at it and break up the parts, we can sub-optimize the parts, but the whole then does not work well. And we can bring it together. And when we do, and really engage the people and share information. And one of the critical things about an organization where there is psychological safety is that people will share information. They will talk about what's going on. They'll be looking out for each other. They'll be helping each other. They'll be thinking together and improving together. So psychological safety is extraordinarily important to open that environment where the information will flow and we can grow and learn together. But without that, everybody goes back into their sleepwalking mode. Same old, same old. One of the things I recently noticed, which is a little off the track here, when I was a plant manager and we cut our injury rates 97% and emissions to the environment by 95%, one of the things I realized was we brought the process safety together with all the occupational safety and health stuff, not separate. However, when I go to an ASSP meeting, I rarely hear anyone talking about process safety. And at AICHE meetings, I rarely hear anyone talking about slips, trips, and falls. Everybody's in their compartment and they feel good about their little compartment. It's nice and safe. And when we open it up, it can feel risky, but it doesn't have to be if we have a place where it's safe enough to talk together and listen and learn together. Right. These are the things that I find are so powerful in helping the organization to get better and the people to quit hurting themselves. When people learn to talk, change can happen very, very rapidly. I was working in a big sugar mill in Australia. They were processing 25,000 tons a day of sugar cane, had 350 men, about 30 serious injuries a year and killing somebody every 12 to 18 months. And the attitude was, well, bad stuff happens. After getting together and talking and opening up and helping with the manager to create this psychological safety, their injury rate went to zero. And it stayed at zero for the next 9 months because they all decided they didn't have to keep doing the dumb stuff that they were doing, like standing on railings and all that kind of, thoughtless type of behavior. So the psychological safety enables us to talk together, to listen together, to help each other, to see each other as people, to know that when I'm coming to work one day and I'm not quite right, somebody says, hey, what's cooking? Is it your problem? Do you need something? All those kind of things need to happen. we got to stop the doggone harassment and bullying. And over half the organizations in the country have bully problems.
Mhm.
Yet when I went to talk to the Chamber of Commerce in St. Petersburg, Florida, who have about 55,000 members, well, we don't have any problems with bullying here. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's willing to share. It's all kind of a big secret. And it's a shame.
And sometimes it's subtle, isn't it, Richard?
Pardon me?
Sometimes we're very subtle in the way we undermine each other. And if we talk about systems, what in our current organizational system reinforces competition among employees? Performance management.
It's the agreements they all make together about how they're going to behave. And those can be
Right.
overt agreements, or they can be very subtle.
Subtle, right.
Yeah.
It can be
So-
both ways.
Well,
I saw Tanya had shared some stuff in the chat, so I wanted to kind of invite her also to share her thoughts, because you actually researched some stuff on this for us, Tanya.
It's amazing. We love you, Tanya.
oh, look at that response. She likes being loved.
Actually, I was gonna share a story. I mean, I've actually kind of benefited from all of the free resources that this pandemic has offered
Mhm.
us. You know, like
Incredible.
I've kind of taken advantage, probably more than my share, but you know, I have a whole collection of lots of information as a result. So one story, which is pertinent to this. Alan Mulally is a leader that nobody knows, and that's because he was an excellent leader. Because we don't recognize excellence in our society. We don't recognize true leadership. We recognize kind of the dysfunctional leadership that the names that we know are the ones who likely are there for the wrong reasons. So that's one thing. Alan Mulally was in charge of Ford just at the time of the 2008 crisis. And I didn't realize that Ford didn't ask for government sponsorship under his leadership.
Mm.
So when he inherited Ford, of course, there was tons of media around this because Ford was not doing well. And, you know, so, oh, here's the guy who's going to save Ford. He talked about, at a conference that I went to, he's retired now. He talked about one of his early meetings having an international, you know, looking over your key performance indicators meeting. All sorts of people on conference call, like a big meeting. And he looked at the indicators and everything was perfect. But he knew that they, in his words, were hemorrhaging money. So, you know, and he go around, so how is your plant doing? How's your plant doing? Everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine. And he said, okay, somebody has to explain this to me because we are losing money every week at a rate that we're going to go bankrupt shortly. Like somebody has to, we can't all be perfect. And he credits one guy from Oshawa, Ontario. Yeah, this is over months and months and months. Oshawa, Ontario very tentatively put up his hand and said, well, actually, we're not going to make our delivery date for one of the trucks. He said you could have seen the, you know, the temperature in the room change to be ice cold, and that you find it as had a fire outside. That guy said that they were going to open the door and kill him. Like it was just obvious to him that everybody around was like, oh my God, you don't get it, do you? You can't talk like that. You can't say that. And so over time, that guy ended up sitting beside him at these meetings. And this was like, holy crap, what the hell's going on? Like, what? He's an enemy. Like he said something wrong. Like how the hell is he sitting beside, you know, the CEO? And eventually he got, you know, well, we can't release that product because we're missing a critical part for the hitch on the truck, you know, and we can't release the thing. One of the other plants said, oh, well, we have that part, you know, we could ship you that. And for the first time, he started to get them to realize that they were one company. They were not in competition with one another. They all worked for the same organization, and he had to kill this competitive spirit that had forever been in that company. Now, that he did a lot of things, including walking people after an executive meeting, walking behind somebody who didn't act appropriately at an executive meeting, walking behind them to their office. He had a full calendar. He's a CEO. He would walk behind them, go into their office and said, we're going to talk about what just happened at that meeting. And he would spend whatever it took. And there were people who didn't like this approach, and that was fine. You don't have to work here. And that's how he started to work on the way that Ford was operating.
Tell me
Some
that
people-
behavior doesn't influence change in systems. That's behavior.
Yeah, Tanya, and I think you struck something there on, you know, I often hear people say, well, it starts at the top. You know, the values and beliefs start at the top. And when employees who are more on the work floor see the executives behaving in an inappropriate way, it doesn't give us people to want to follow. And so, you know, maybe there's a question about the quality of those going into that leadership, those leadership positions, because what you spoke about that silence, people, that coldness in the room, has anybody else in the group also come ever across that? I'd be interested.
Yeah, I did many a times. I worked in DuPont, big dysfunctional organization. It's not the same now, it's a different company. But there was always that kind of stuff. And if you take a look at a recent example, General Electric is in a heck of a lot of trouble because the culture was set under the previous top people. Everybody had to be nice and everybody had to say nice things and nobody could talk about the problems. And so they were all swept under the carpet and the company went further and further into trouble. GE's had a terrible time with that. It happens everywhere. If we don't share the information and we don't help each other, what we're doing is using up the capital in the organization, and you can't, it's not infinitely abundant. People have to see.
Richard, let me ask you, because we're lucky to have you here because you were a plant manager, so you actually had authority, which is very different from a safety professional, okay?
Right.
There's this whole dynamic that we can start focusing on the people at the top, or what the management team is or isn't doing. But the question is here that we are to discuss is, my understanding is how can we intervene and be helpful in this situation? Okay. And I would like to propose that it starts with me. And how is my mental health and how am I impacting, my immediate circle around me that I'm working with? And then through that, how can I help other people, come to that understanding or awareness? Because we don't have authority. We only have influence. So I'd like to hear from folks about how you feel about that situation. I mean, we do not have the authority. We're not ever going to be able to go up to the CEO and say, this is how you should run a meeting. Well, maybe you will. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. But it would be difficult to go up to the CEO and tell them that wonderful story and then have them respond to it.
Rosa,
So
I'm going before we turn it over, I just want to say, what you're talking about is recognizing that each one of us are leaders and we're followers. right? We all play those roles, and we're managers and we're leaders. We manage and lead every day of our lives, regardless of our formal position. So are you, and then I'm not only asking you, I'm asking the group.
Yeah, the group.
Does this mean that mental health is then associated with our ability, our individual ability to feel we can make authentic contributions and be valued within the workplace? And how do we make that happen?
Gary?
Yeah, okay. First of all, is it okay if is the word mental health and well-being synonymous? We're trying not to use word mental health because a lot of people all of a sudden start thinking of mental illness and it kind of takes you to a bad spot.
Right on.
We're trying to think well-being as opposed to sickness. And that's just semantics right now, but I'm trying to go there.
That's why it wasn't in my presentation. Exactly, Gary.
Yes, right. So I'm listening to the stories that have been shared, and on the chat, I did put up a little graphic. It's a well-being in Kinevin, and some of you may or may not know Kinevin, and I don't want to push Kinevin, but it's in that new book that we wrote. This is actually from the chapter about well-being in Kinevin. Do you want to put this on the screen so everybody should see? What is that? Is that
Yeah, do it, Gary. Let's see
let me
it.
just do that here. Let me just, okay, so let me just share that. Is that okay? Everybody see that?
Cool, we see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me just open this really big. Okay, so again, I don't want to go through it because I'm looking at the time here, but I'm hearing what the different things we did. Like for example, at the beginning, Rosa's kind of took it through a bit of a mindfulness and stress relieving. And all these things on here are really good. We just got to know where they make sense. It belongs what we call a clear domain because that's the individual. I can do this. And I think that's the message you gave us, Rosa. We can each do that anytime we need to work on it here. Then I watched Lisa and she talked about all these different programs that are kind of out there. We kind of say, well, these are in the complicated domain because they do focus on the individual, but we also know too that there are systems tied to it here. So the place that we're trying to go to, and it's really confirmed by the stories that Dick shared, it's about story collecting here and understanding of what the hell is happening on the workplace floor here. That takes into the complex domain because if you get people that are reductionists and they want to compartmentalize, put people in silos here, we're saying you can't do that. Everything is entangled. And to try to take things apart here, it's just trying to break down mayonnaise. You just can't do it here. So the best thing for us to do is collect those stories. And I just looked at the URL that Tanya provided on the Video Facilitators Guide. And it's all about tell a story. So there you are. I mean, so that guide there is saying we need to collect these stories and then kind of make sense of what's really happening on the floor today. And then that really informs the decision makers of what sort of programs do we require to go forward here. I'm less concerned about having the individual programs. I'm more about looking at the system as a whole and what can we change. And going back to what you said, Lisa, maybe is, as you note there, it is the performance management system. It's the way people are promoted here. It's the stresses that the environment are creating, cognitive overload, bullying, as Dick kind of said. These are all prevalent here. So if we can collect the stories here and allow these things to emerge here, then I think decision makers will be more informed in how to put in the right policies and standards going forward.
Are you saying that we would collect the stories and share them with management, that would have an impact? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's really about self-awareness, discovering self-awareness here, because you're right. All that we can do, Rosa, as professionals is influence. I'd much rather say, here's a map of all the stories that we've heard here. This is your culture, if you like here. What do you guys want to do about it? And when we do that here, you get a lot of, oh my God, I didn't realize we had X, Y, Z here. Wow, I didn't realize we had a story. it's just not one bullying story. We've got to, oh my God, what are we going to do about it? That's the best thing we can do, is put it in front of them.
Mm.
I don't think we need to come with recommendations, whatever. We may come with nudges, but let them first of all become self-aware that they actually have a problem that needs some fixing.
And sometimes though, they know that they have a problem that needs to be fixed. However, they don't want to, they're in denial, or I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
And they try to, they systematically try to close things out. And I was in a company where when I started at the company, it was 50 people. They had a lot of great programs for wellness for the employees, yoga, a lot of different game stuff. And then, and part of the understanding was between lunchtime, 12 and 2, people could have the option to self-care. But then as the company grew and people came in leadership with a different mindset from different other companies, they started actually booking meetings during that 12 to 2, eliminating people's capability of self-care if they wanted to. So I'm going to push back about everybody has power, because that's not the truth in an organization. Everybody does not have the same power. And leadership can manipulate if they want to also.
Well, then they don't have to stay there. I don't know if I agree with that either.
Yeah. Well, that's a different conversation that we're not going to have today, because that's a bigger issue.
Yeah, but this is the power of stories.
People having power. I think everyone does. Gary, what were you saying?
Richard was also having his hand up, Lisa.
Gary, did you have something to finish before we turn it to Richard?
Yeah, I'm just saying with the power of stories, particularly collected anonymously, people actually can have an authentic voice. The thing is, it's not actually collecting the stories, it's getting the decision makers to listen to the stories. Mm-hmm. That's the real key.
Thank you, Richard.
I think we can make this terribly complicated if we're not careful. The approach I took was I would walk out into the plant, and I spent 5 hours a day for 5 years. The plant was 1 mile long and 1/3 of a mile wide. Sit down with the people in their workplace, have a cup of coffee. How you doing? What can I do to help you? What's going on? What are we learning together? Sometimes we'd argue, sometimes we'd hug, but was out there all the time engaging with the people, helping them to see they could make a difference. And safety people can do that as well. And safety people have something that's unique that many do not have. Most of you have access to the whole organization. You're not stuck in a silo. In safety, you're out looking at the work, so you're all over the place and you can be in it. You can be influencing just the way I was, sitting down and talking with the people, helping them to see, yeah, they can do it. They can make a difference. And you can begin to do more. And then maybe you invite the boss to come with you on a walk and sit down and talk with people and begin to move it that way. But safety people, I think, underrate the amount of influence they can have. And part of it is they're all stuck in their office doing all the doggone reports and stuff. So it's hard for them to, get out as much as they should. But for 5 hours a day, I walked the plant, listening, talking. I did not make decisions that would screw up the line. But boy, I sure had a lot of questions. We get back and sit down with the rest of the folks. So we can just walk out among the people, sit down and have a good heart-to-heart conversation and talk with them, not at them. We do a lot of talking at people.
Yeah.
We sit down and talk with people. How can I help? What's going on? What do you see?
Richard, what you sound like you were able to do was to free yourself from the traditional perspective of safety and what the safety professional is supposed to care about. And you cared about the human side of safety and connecting. And it also sounds like you totally recognize if people are engaged and feel valued, they perform more physically safety too.
Well,
and I think that's fabulous.
That changes. Organizations change one conversation at a time. The Berlin Wall came down because of millions of conversations on street corners and kitchens and bars And one day somebody went out with no big safety conference, anything, with a sledgehammer and knocked it down, and nobody shot him. And then everybody came.
That's right.
That's what happened. And as it builds up, like sand in a pile, it builds up and then it begins to change right away.
That's a great
I
analogy. I think Jim had his hand
Yeah,
up.
I think Jim had his hand.
Oh, okay, because I see Bob down there too.
Yeah.
I wanted to agree with Richard. I definitely think that that method is very effective. There's a premise that we haven't spoken to inherent in that, and you mentioned it. Are we learning? And if the system is designed with an expectation that we've already thought about everything, just follow the procedures, you don't have room for that question, are we learning? And so there's an underlying aspect there that we need to be careful to be cognizant of. And that is, have we allowed for the adaptation that humans provide? Because we know that our systems aren't perfect. And are we really valuing the input of the people versus assuming that the systems are going to take care of everything and the people can clean up a couple of loose ends? And if your organization is communicating that your system is great, just follow it, doesn't matter how you go out and interact with people. On the other hand, if you are communicating that we've done the best we can, but we know that that last 2% or 5% or 10% is counting on the expertise of the people, and then we're out there reinforcing the need to learn, then we're bringing this all together.
Right on, Jim.
Bob also, I believe, had something to say.
Yes, thank you. I just thought it was important to pull a couple of thoughts together here. I heard sort of the discussion about us taking our responsibility for our own well-being, which certainly goes hand in hand with some more traditional thoughts around safety, and that is, again, some of the other challenges of a workplace aside, employees understanding the risks that they may be exposed to and how to protect themselves, and most importantly, taking those actions to protect themselves, assuming they've been provided the resources and the training and the education. That's a really important fundamental concept. But likewise, when we as a safety leader are healthy, our well-being is where we want it to be, we can be great mentors to the operators that we support. And I've seen that in 3 very, very large organizations that I've been associated with in my career. We like to think that these leaders, sometimes senior and executive leaders, have it all together. Otherwise, how could they be where they are? But they don't just arrive with that knowledge and experience. Some have never had a serious injury in their entire working career. And, that's where we can come alongside and say, look, yes, this is a bad situation. We're going to get through it together. I'm going to show you how, and, take over if you need me to, but, we can do this together. And I don't think that a safety professional or technician can do that if they themselves kind of aren't where they need to be health and wellness wise. Work-life balance, right? These are challenging situations, and to be able to do that has almost nothing to do with OSHA codes and ANSI standards or the rest. It's just about being people and coming alongside these leaders, no matter how senior they may be, still is about an interaction between 2 people.
And so I want to,
Tamara, may I follow up?
Well, I want to also listen to Robin and Nadja before we go. So can you bring them in too?
About Bob. Yeah. Okay. Bob, for me, I feel like a broken record, but I have to say it again because I so agree with what you're saying, and that sense that we can help the executive find their center comes from us being well and centered ourselves. That is number one. Your own sense of presence, your own sense of confidence, and own sense of self-esteem that you could actually, because we have to have a little bit of compassion here. We have all of this knowledge and we have all this contact with employees that they don't have. And one of the main reasons that they do not jump in to do anything, or you say they don't respond, to the information, is because they don't know what to do. They just don't know what to do. And you can come in and say things like what Richard was saying. Well, try this, collect the stories, go out, have a cup of coffee. So that would be our role from my experience. And not everybody's going to do it or listen, but they will, some will, and we will be able to make a difference that way. So I just wanted to respond to Bob's, because I like that sense of, I have value, I have something to offer that's in their blind spot. I mean, that's why they hired us, because they know they have a blind spot. So Tamara, I will turn it over. Robin, please invite Robin in. Where is Robin? Oh, there you are.
Well, I'm here. Yes, so two things kind of resonated with me. Something Richard said and something Bob said. Richard, I've actually worked for General Electric, so I know what you're talking about. General Electric was a huge meritocracy, and it was the meritocracy, in my opinion, that destroyed the company. It makes or results in every employee being a unitary agent within the organization, and teamwork suffers as a consequence of that. It doesn't suffer in the sense of what you see as an external observer. You see all kinds of teamwork going on, but mentally in the heads of each individual, they know that their purpose in life at General Electric is to outcompete their peers, okay? Secondly, what Bob said is kind of matched up with what I've been thinking the whole time. I'm not a safety professional. I'm actually more of a quality professional, but we kind of deal with the same role issues as quality professionals that you do as safety professionals, in that we're constantly trying to find what our role is in the organization and how we can best serve the organization. And from my standpoint, safety professionals are actually better positioned than quality professionals to stake out their own role. And what I've advised quality people in the past is there's two personal skills you need to obtain, and do whatever you need to do to obtain it. One is you need to get the best facilitation skill set that you can possibly get. And the other one is communications. You have to be a fantastic communicator. And if, in an organization in which there's a high degree of stress in the workforce, the best situation you can put yourself in as a safety professional, in my opinion, is to assist management in communication and transparency, and making sure that you're breaking down the organizational factors that are maintaining that stress, putting rumors to rest, making sure that the workforce knows the path ahead, make sure that workforce knows about the challenges that the organization is having to deal with, and get it out of the area of rumor. There's this tightly held belief in top management, on top management leadership teams, that they need to hold all this stuff internal to themselves and not share it. And a workforce that's under a great deal of stress is going to be a workforce that's going to have higher accident rates, more consequential events occurring that are going to impact the operations, and things of that nature. So I kind of see the safety, the quintessential invaluable safety professional as someone who is an internal catalyst for the organization, that can break down all of those elements in the organization that are causing the problems, okay? And you don't have to have power, but you have to have referent influence. You have to develop a reputation internal to the organization as someone there who is invaluable and is there assisting. And if you can't get access to the top leadership, because quite frankly, the top leadership doesn't get it, right? And we've all been there. Then I go back into my military background, and what I pull out is go out and find who the natural leaders are in the organization, the people that the new people the organization look up to, and learn from and seek out for mentorship and facilitate their ability to lead in the organization. So be that facilitation agent, be that person who can consult on communication. It's not about you, it's about recognizing the natural leaders or the organizational leaders themselves and helping them to perform at a high level in order to ensure that the organization has all the necessary factors to establish human relationships internally, mental safety, psychological safety. Those things all directly impact the industrial KPIs that safety professionals get themselves bogged down on. And that's all I'll say about that.
That was great, Robin. Thank you. We're at a little after the hour and we want to honor the time of everyone. I'm just going to say my goodbye and then Tamara, I'll turn it over to you. I really appreciate having this discussion. We could spend 3 hours on it. I mean, we were so up here and it would have been great to dive into how do we actually help build well-being for everyone, but another session. So thank you for joining today. Tamara.
Wait a minute, Rosa, did you want to say something?
Just if everybody has like 3 more minutes, I just am curious whether anybody heard something today that moved the needle for them.
I'd also like to give Nadja an opportunity to speak because it's,
Yay.
Yes, I will be very brief. Greetings from Finland. It's so nice to listen to this discussion. I connect very much to the things that all of you said, and I was just thinking about this whole person, the full person, and the need to be curious to us as people, and not that much necessarily as experts. And this is something that takes energy and time and curiosity, and it is really something that we as safety professionals have the how can I say, capacity to do that. Yeah. So thank you so much. It's a great discussion.
Thank you, Nadja.
For coming from Finland, all the way from Finland. Yay.
You must be tired.
No. Yeah, we just connected recently with Lisa.
I know,
yes.
I'm so happy.
Yeah.
So I know that we are 7 minutes over, but before we depart, did anybody have anything that they really wanted to share with the group before we leave today? Just raise your hand so we know which order. Okay, Gary?
Yeah, just want to know that I've been following the chat and there's a whole bunch of cool links on there. So somehow, I assume, Tamara, you're going to capture those so we can just have them available?
Yeah.
Great.
I'll put them on the episode page like I have been lately, putting the chats there. I also, Gary, wanted to connect with you and see if maybe we can get the author of that book for our next Meet the Author session. So I'll connect back with you on that.
Sure. Yeah.
Gary is my new co-host, it seems, for that show. Tanya, did I see your hand go up, but you have a virtual screen, or?
I guess the only thing that I would offer is that a lot of what we're talking about is our Western culture. So I think we can start to question who we value as heroes, who we see as villains, and why we do that. If we can start to be asking ourselves these types of questions, we might be getting to the heart of, some of the deeper things that are going on.
And I think, Tanya, what you're pointing out there about, like, a lot of us are looking at this from Western culture. And so our experience in the workplace is going to be very different than somebody who's in different places in the world. Because I know when I talk to people from Australia, they have very different, they come at their work sites very differently than we do here in Canada.
I've experienced that too, Tamara. And I like Robin's comment that we value the Marlboro Man.
So true.
Our hero.
I wanted to compliment I think it was Robin that mentioned the catalyst that the safety professional can be. And in my experience, helping folks realize the potential to interact across organizational boundaries in ways that engage those active questioning interactions towards learning invaluable. And the safety professional being able to work across those organizational boundaries and help those conversations occur makes a really big difference, not in just the technical outcomes of the organization, but also in the relationship building. So I think that's a really good point.
Thank you. Absolutely. Great point to end our session on. So thank you everybody for joining us. And we do have a Meet the Author coming up on the 20th. And so I'm in the process of looking up for an author right now. So if you have somebody that you would like, I'm going to hit Gary up for his suggestion with the book, but I'm open to ideas also. And if it's not this one, they could be invited for the next one.
Thank you.
Sure. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Be well.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.